First of all, I want to congratulate the organizers of this 2 days conference in the way they have done it. I know for your participants it's different from speakers, but it's wonderful how well informed we were, how much information we got. Wonderful. Great. I hope you enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed the preparations until now. The second thing, you said I'm an ethical researcher. I do hope that all of us in this room are ethical researchers. I'm an ethicist. That's a small difference. What I've been asked to talk about with you is supervisors, responsibilities of supervisors and PhDs, good mentorship. When I was preparing myself for this talk, I thought I need some kind of symbol of my own roles in this. And I started with my shoes. These are the shoes that I wore more than 20 years ago. They've been repaired since then, yes. On the day of my promotion. So I wanted to feel grounded in that time when I was still a PhD and just on the brink of becoming that step ahead, a doctor. And the rest of my clothing has nothing to do with that. But my shoes are important because that's what I'm standing on. It also, you will hear it in my story, it has got to do with shoes that were made by good mentors. This by way of introduction. But I'm especially going to talk about mentorship and being a mentee. And we always need to go back to our history, I think. When we use the word mentor, where does it come from? It's a wonderful story. You all know about Odysseus, Ulysses, depending whether you prefer the Greek or the Latin, and he was of the traveling kind. But he did have children. And you know, at that time, just like for some, it still is today, when you are a man and you have children, no problem at all, you have your wife at home. So you just go abroad. But Odysseus thought, well, that's a big responsibility, and there is more to raising children than providing them with the motherly care. There is that introduction to the world. This was still quite a patriarchal world, of course. So he asked one of his best friends to take care of his son, Telemachus. And his best friend was named Mentor. So if we talk about mentors, it goes back to, well, here you can see the old person. As soon as, whenever we see white hair, it seems that we talk about an old person. It signifies wisdom. Some people just use hair paint, you know. And what was he asked to do? Odysseus, well, first of all, what is important is that Odysseus thought, I need someone I can trust. I do not give responsibilities to someone else when it's about my own son, when I don't trust them. So it was a very trusted friend. But not just a friend, it's a friend who knows about the world, who knows about the position you can take in the world. So it's someone who can introduce my son into this environment in which he will have a specific and special role. To show how important mentor was, you know, those Greeks, they had all those wonderful things going on and the gods were interfering. And you know, when Odysseus was away and Penelope, his wife, was on her own, all kinds of suitors came and they tried to woo her, you know, to take over power and so on. And that wouldn't have been good for the situation right then. So Athena thought, I have to influence Telemachus, because he must go to his mother and say, turn away all those guys. How can I influence him? What did she do? She disguised herself as mentor. Again, to show you how important mentor was. He really is the one that Telemachus felt was giving him advice. She even attempted that twice. So mentor, what he did was, to summarize it, he handed down the tradition. And what he did was help Telemachus to find his own way in that society. So he supported the talents that Telemachus had. And here you see it's not only about Telemachus himself, but it's also about that society. It was a way of securing future leadership. Important lesson to be learned here: if you have a mentor cares for your good, but probably somewhere at the back of his or her mind also have an idea that the mentee could play a role in society. And you want to secure that people continue doing the things that you deem important. Now, I want to draw attention to a distinction we need to make. I guess you all have supervisors, am I right? Before I make that distinction, who has a mentor? Now, according to just what I told about mentor in the classical age, but who has a mentor? Oh, not that many people. Those who say they don't have a mentor, what is your idea about a mentor? Just tell me. You know, I was asked to give a lecture, but let's make it a bit more interactive. You said you don't have a mentor. What's your idea of a mentor, and why don't you have that?
I would call it a supervisor.
You would call it a supervisor?
Yeah, I don't know really the difference.
You don't know really the difference?
Yeah.
People who didn't raise their hands when I asked them, do you have a mentor? How many of them say, I don't know the difference between a supervisor and a mentor? Okay, a lot. Well, I'll explain it then. And then we can come back to the question. First of all, it was clear that you all had supervisors because, in general, it is an officially assigned and particular role in the academic setting. You are obliged to have one. And I look at you, yes, everybody has a supervisor. Otherwise, you're not doing your research here as a PhD. So it's clear that it's an official requirement. I guess that not only me, but you as well, would have been surprised if somebody said, I don't have a supervisor.
You never know.
You never know, but you probably would be running at them. Hey, what's going on? So it's just an official requirement. And the responsibility that the supervisor has is to ensure that the student fulfills departmental and institutional requirements for an advanced degree. So actually, the supervisor needs to do the things so that you can get your PhD. And it's rather well defined. Minimalistically said, it's that your supervisor sees you every now and then, and you talk about your research. And you talk about the research plan. Any other things you do? That's it, the minimal requirement, and that's it? No? No? What else do you do?
Our supervisor invited us to dinner.
Oh, the supervisor invited them to dinner. Wow, yes.
So we ate food.
Sorry, what was it?
We ate food together.
Uh-huh.
So it was a nice experience.
It was a nice experience. Are there people who have those social meetings? Yeah. Is that an official requirement? No. Hey, it seems that supervisors do more things than official requirements. That's probably because, I said we need to distinguish it. That's for analytical reasons that we make that distinction. because hopefully in practice you will see that it blends. Because a mentor, usually someone who is very much willing to share their experiences about what it is to be a researcher, and they will tell you stories. Actually, when I started talking about my shoes, it was the beginning of a large story, because I said more than 20 years ago, so you can imagine that if I start talking about all my experiences, and I would like to share with you what to do and not to do, and so on and so on, we could go on. I could have filled the entire 2 days. And I'm not the only one, I know. So you share your experience, but you also share your expertise. Well, supervisors usually do share their expertise, because that's what you need in order to be able to fulfill those requirements. They are able to reflect on their successes and failures. I specifically mention failures as well, because good mentors are just wise enough to know that failing is part of the experiences that you have as a researcher, and it doesn't, well, give any kind of connotation of, oh my God, you're not good or whatever. No, these are experiences that are part of life. And they know that the student won't think, what a stupid supervisor I have, or what a stupid mentor I have. Oh no, at least in my case, when my mentor told me about mistakes he made, I thought, hey, oh, this happened to him as well. Okay, if I make a mistake, it's not that bad. It's about sharing that. And usually it helps if you have a glass of wine. Just one of those anecdotes. My own supervisor for my PhD was someone, well, I would say mentor. He felt that as a student, I studied theology, and he said theologians need to know about wine. So we had, well, reasonably often meetings where we tasted good wines. And to him that was just part of bringing me into the world of research. There aren't that many like that. The mentor explains what they've learned, and they are really interested in the development of your career. How can you proceed? What future do you have? What do you want to do? It's not about, we have this project and we need to finish this project. It's also about you. Officially, the supervisor doesn't need to be interested in your career. But as a mentor, she will be. Now, supervisors do not necessarily or reliably take on the responsibilities of a mentor, but most of them blend it together because it's such fun. It's fun to go through that process of the new PhD, trying to find out, where am I? What do I find exciting? Why is this research wonderful or not? Or understanding things, clarifying. And what the mentor does is introducing you to that world of science, of research. I remember that my mentor once said, you know, I studied in Belgium and I came to the Netherlands for my PhD, and my mentor was someone who knew both worlds. And he said, if you want to do this, then you really need to read these books and use them, because in the Dutch context, everybody's referring to them. So if you want to get accepted in that scientific world, you need to know about these books. In other countries, at other universities, they have a different culture, there will be something different, but here you really need to do that. Was I a good mentee? I don't know. I did read the books, but I didn't use them in my PhD. I had a good mentor, and we'll come back to that as one of the qualities, because he gave me advice. And what he did, when he saw that I didn't use them in the chapter that I had to submit, he said, okay, why didn't you, now he didn't ask me why didn't you use it, but he asked me questions so that I could explain him that I had, I thought at the time, good reasons, and he confirmed it that my reasons were good. He was willing to listen to it. He gave me advice. It would have been different if I hadn't read the books, of course, you know. But we had a real conversation, and he was willing to accept my stubbornness. Now, just the background in UMCG. I hope that most of you know that there is a UMCG research code. Do you know about it? Everybody does? Not everybody. There's a difference, first of all, between knowing about it and having read it. And I understand that if you haven't read it, because it's not exciting literature. It's especially important if you don't know anymore what to do. But, now, I just highlighted, or I copy-pasted, the part about good mentorship. Because in UMCG, we all say good mentorship is extremely important. You will see I highlighted it in red, that in the text it's constantly about supervising. Now mentorship, I hope it's already clear, is more than just supervising. It's being interested in the other person. So probably, while there's continuous talk about updating the UMCG research code, maybe we should add something about what mentorship can be. And I'm looking at you, yes. It's just a suggestion that maybe we could write into the updated version. Now, what are the responsibilities of a mentor? I just listed them here. Provide knowledge, wisdom, and developmental support, have confidence about the advice given, develop an understanding of the unique needs of the mentee. Hey! This means that a mentor is interested in this particular person. It's not about, I have this large group, and we start here and we are all supposed to get there, and in between we just treat it like, you know, blocks in a fabric, and they're going on and on and on and on and on. No, it's about you in particular, and maybe, yes, you want to join us to get there, but some people will go in that line, and others will go in that line, and still others will circle around, and they will get at the end point having their PhD, but the way towards that can be very, very different. And that's important for a mentor to realize that. So if you want to know, hey, is my supervisor also a mentor? This is one of the points you can look at. Do they have an interest in me and the roads I am taking? Make sure mentees' expectations are appropriate. So, mentors are reality principles. They check you. And they also have an obligation to intervene and help out in instances when the mentee has followed the mentor's advice, but it has turned out poorly. No problem at all with that if the mentor is that person who is very openly talking about their own failures, because then they will also be willing to accept, hey, I gave you an advice and it turned out very poorly. I have a responsibility in that as well. It's sometimes hard, but we may and can expect that from a real mentor, that they do that. The checklist for the mentor. No paternalism. Odysseus didn't ask mentor to be a surrogate father. there's a difference between being a mentor and being a father. Different responsibilities, different ways to go acting about it. Paternalism means, well, you all know, not giving people freedom to do the things they want, knowing best what the other should do. No, paternalism means giving the mentee the chance to make mistakes and then helping them. A good father will do that as well, of course. But you understand what it is about. Confidentiality is extremely important. With a mentor, you can go to a mentor and tell whatever is going on. Oh, whatever is going on. In the context of your position as a PhD. Or if it's in another context, in the context of that specific field. Loyalty. Mentors are very loyal to their mentees and they are caring. Wow, what an ideal picture. I think what it really comes down to is this sentence: mentors are to be partial to the student but impartial about the student's work. You remain the supervisor who's looking at the work and sees whether it's done correctly and the way it's supposed to be. But you're partial to the student because there is that special relationship. And that's what a mentor is. A supervisor could still be distant. Now let's go back first. Now I'll turn back to, we have this ideal picture now of a mentor. Who has a mentor? Hey, more people. Are you willing to describe that mentor? Why it is a real mentor? Yeah, you hear. I'll give you the mic because otherwise I'll just run around.
Okay, so I think it's a bit blend of the qualities, like mentor and supervisor, because as a supervisor he has also some duties that I can totally understand. So, and on the other hand, he's also a mentor. I say him mentor because he's really interested in what I do. He doesn't he allows me to make mistakes and that's fine for him, and he also shares his experience, like he has gone through this and he can understand what it feels like being a PhD student. So that's why I think he's a mentor. Apart from that, he understands all the the different things, and he is also social and he is also interested in what are my future plans and everything, so he talks about it.
Wonderful. Others to add something? This about the image that others have? Are there any people who have, on the one hand, a supervisor, and on the other hand, somebody else whom they consider to be their mentor? Because that's possible as well. You have. Could you describe why or how or whatever?
I have a mentor who is in Canada, and she works for the government. She's a researcher also, and she's very candid with me about things, and I talk to her about my work often, and she advises me on many things. But what I really appreciate from her is she gives me honest feedback, and she's also very, well, she's gentle with me on her feedback, but she's also very, like I said, honest. But she has many, she's gone through the entire experience many times, and she has many students, but she's almost like a surrogate supervisor, but she's not my supervisor, so she doesn't have those responsibilities towards me. So.
This is an example of how, as you say yourself, it's like a supervisor, but it's not a supervisor because she doesn't have the responsibilities a supervisor has. So we have to keep in mind it's not really necessary that a supervisor is the mentor. It could be two different people. Because, well, first of all, as I said, the ideal picture, it's quite a lot that we ask from people. And it's quite an investment you have to make as a mentor. So realize that if your supervisor isn't a mentor, maybe it's somebody who has already to invest lots of other things and so on. Don't be too harsh on them. Now I'm speaking from the other side. And sometimes it's nice to have a mentor who's not involved in your day-to-day work, simply because you can talk with them about very different things. So it's good to make that distinction, because then you know it's wonderful if you have them in one person, but it's not necessary. Now, there is this physics professor at Columbia University who in 2007 published his laws in Nature, the laws of Herman. And he says, well, as a mentor supervisor, he blends them in his person. He says, well, remember, your vacation begins after you defend your thesis. Some people love that. In research, what matters is what is right, not who is right. In research and other matters, your advisor is always right, most of the time. Act as if your advisor is always right, most of the time. If you think you are right and you are able to convince your advisor will be very happy. Yeah, we can start smiling at these kind of rules, but 3, 4, and 5 actually have got to do with the example I gave about my mentor saying, read those books, and then, yeah, he's always right, so I read the books. And I continued doing as if he was right by quoting the books in our conversations. And then I thought, it doesn't benefit my project. So I got to 5, but only after having given all the arguments, of course. But then he was very happy. It works. That's what I want to say to you. It works. It's not just a funny rule. It really helps. There's, of course, supposing that, just like Professor Herman, you have someone who's very wise and knows about it. Because otherwise it wouldn't be your mentor, of course, if he wasn't wise. And he continues, your productivity varies. Well, you can read this, point 6 and 7. Point 8, I really like that one. Do not forget that. I added this picture to it. I hope it's clear on the screen. Yes. 10 is a nice one. I often hear that people think that they have to produce a lot already from day one. That's impossible. And every mentor will immediately tell you about their own experiences. I remember when I did my research at first at the faculty I was at, there were some other PhDs. It's not like here, you know, there were like 4 or 5, no, there were 6 in total. And the other 5 always told me stories about how hard they worked, and, you know, they stayed up till 2 or 3 at night, reading, thinking, writing, and so on. And I felt terrible, because I'm that kind of person who, well, I'm productive, very productive even during the day. In the evening I can manage meetings, but after 10 o'clock, no sense comes out of my mouth. Really. At that time I tried to write at night, because the others were doing it. The next morning, now you think she read the things, no, the next morning I couldn't read, I was too tired. So the day after I looked at it and I thought, this is gibberish. It's nonsense. I can't think at night. And then I told my mentor, I don't know, I'm not sure whether I will ever be able to produce anything. And it was such a wise man, and he said, did I ask you to give me something yet? Oh no, don't listen to those others. And I was the first to finish my PhD. But you need someone to tell you this. And of course there are people who work very well at night, but that's your own rhythm. That's a great one. There is that moment, 11, that you are the bigger expert. That's wonderful. Both from the perspective of having been a PhD, and then suddenly there's that moment that you think, hey, but I know more about about this topic. Yes, I said my topic, because then it becomes your own topic. And you do. Wow! From the other side, if you see that somebody really has it, you know, at heart, and know so much more about it than you do, you reached your goal. Someone who's become smarter than you. Well, you know about the blood pressure. 14 is an important one. Don't have to talk about that. And 15, quality, quality, quality. This is Herman's law. Well, you need to do it. 16 is in the context of the affairs we've had in the Netherlands lately with Diederik Stapel. Some of you have heard about it, social psychologist who had PhDs, who worked, and it seems that he did a lot of work. Well, he didn't, but he said he had done it. That's impossible. So 16, it's your work, and you have to do the work. And if somebody says, I already did, you know, I interviewed people, and I did the statistics, and so on, don't believe them. Well, fame. Yes, we all want to become famous. But if you write a marvelous article, your advisor will become famous as well. Well, whatever is best for you is best for your advisor, whatever is best for your advisor is best for you. These are Herman's laws. I like them. They're funny, they're witty, and there is quite some wisdom in there. If there would be mentors in the room, I would show them this picture. It says, some mentoring is about more than encouraging people to be just like you. It's about becoming yourself. That's why we said a mentor is interested in what your goals are. Then, of course, there was a certain Jason who said, I'm also going to publish my laws. So he was a postdoc at the time, and he says, what are the 10? He's stuck to 10 characteristics of a good mentor. Well, understanding of individual strengths, weaknesses, and unique talents. We talked about that. That's clear. Clarity, good sense of humor, approachability and a good listener, capacity for correction. Well, it's not that strange. Diplomacy, organization, leadership and vision, forgiveness and patience, and communication. Are these characteristics that you recognize? Would you like them in your mentor? Let's go back to the first 5. Anything you say, wow, not that important. Yeah, it's self-evident, isn't it? Some people simply don't have humor. And this? I must admit that I was surprised by organization. You are not. So to you, it's important. Why? I never realized that for a mentee, the capacity, the quality of organization of the mentor would be important. Could you explain that to me?
I think it is important to be organized because you are not the only one they are supervising. So they have to have certain time for each project, for each student, and also they have other tasks that they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that it? I had an extremely disorganized mentor. To me, it was a really good mentor. But why didn't I care about that? Well, first I show you my intermezzo, because I really love this one. You probably know this one. My own mentor was someone with an extremely cluttered desk and an extremely cluttered mind who was always doing 20 things at once, and afterwards I realized there was some kind of organization behind that, but I never discovered it at the time. I felt that I had to organize things. I'm most of the time extremely well organized. So you would say it clashes. It didn't. Why didn't it clash? Because whenever we had a meeting or there was he was there for me. He could sit amidst that desk oh, there was chaos. But here we were. So that's why I was struck by the emphasis on organization. Now, you could say that's your particular experience. Now, why do I give this example? It's possible that you think that certain aspects are important or self-evident, but in practice, in actual day-to-day dealing with someone, it isn't important at all, because there are other characteristics, other qualities that are so much more important. So whichever description we give about a mentor, like this is just a list, there are other lists. So realize that.
But now you're saying that when you were at that chaotic desk of your mentor, he or she had time for you. But when he's organized not in a time management way, then you would have a yeah. And that's what you're meant. So
There needs to be some kind of balance. The way, because I read, of course, the explanation that Jason gave to organization, and he really emphasized the fact that there needed to be extremely clear structures so that you could see whatever, such and such and such. Well, I found out that I can live with some kind of chaos as well. In other people, not in myself, but in other people. So, yeah.
I just had a small question. What was the difference between communication and clarity that he meant? I think number 3 or 2 was clarity.
Yeah.
Could you comment briefly on the difference that he meant?
Yeah. He mentions clarity explicitly. That was yeah. Because he felt that in the project, a mentor should be clear about what the mentee could expect from the mentor.
So sort of boundaries?
It is about boundaries. It's about establishing what kind of relationship you have. That's a bit problematic, I would say, because if you want it in writing, don't do it and you don't have a mentor. Because lots of what happens between a mentee and a mentor is about unwritten things. But clarity also has got to do with boundaries. If we talk about where it can go wrong, people inviting you to their home, there is that famous case that on every website where they talk about mentorship, they give that example. The student is asked to come home to the mentor, and the student thinks it's going to be a party because invited for a party with lots of people, and then it seems that the student is the only one. Boundaries. Well, we all know that this isn't the mentor, this is someone who has something else on his or her mind to just run away. And there are all kinds of people who can help you with that. There are those vertrouwenspersonen, you all know about that, just go to them and tell them. But that's clear. Communication for Jason was about, so clarity is about boundaries, it's about what is the relationship about communication is about really, yeah, how do you say, I want to say communication is about communication, that's recursive. It's, if you have dialogues, what is it about? It must be about exactly what mentorship is meant to be about. It's about inviting you into that world. The communication shouldn't be about, you know, unclear things. Probably if we would have Jason here and ask these questions, he would probably end up saying, I think I want clear communication. So he would blend clarity and communication. He also said, what is a bad mentor? It's somebody who has a lot of anger, greed, apathy, condescension, arrogance, complaints, uses fear and intimidation to produce results, absenteeism and workaholism. I would say these are not characteristics of a bad mentor. These are characteristics of somebody who is not a mentor. And of course, everybody can be angry and so on and so on. But workaholism, with the Jason, I had some problems. First of all, the organization, and now I thought, is workaholism that bad? Tell me, convince me it's bad. Maybe then I will change my behavior.
So maybe you could say it's not good, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Does that help us? It's not good, but it's not bad.
It depends how you experience it, I guess. Like the talk we had this morning from Rashad. Yeah, he said it was a workaholism, or a workaholic, but not in a bad way, because it was just his hobby as well. I think then it's not a bad thing. But if you're completely stressed about it and not having time for your mentees, then yeah.
And he didn't take it to an extreme sense, and it wasn't sort of overliving all of his life. It was healthy, I think.
Yeah.
Healthy workaholism, yes.
Would the aholism refer to the fact that you are, well, needing work to function? In a sense of pathologically needing it, like alcoholism? Yeah, I know, I'm just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if a workaholic person accept the idea that she or his own choice and the others doesn't have to be workaholic like the others, it's okay. So it's a personal thing. But it's like that. Who wants to work late again? And you have to. I'm working late and you have to work late again. So it's kind of problematic, I guess.
I think it's clear that indeed, I guess that quite a lot of researchers consider themselves workaholics, happy workaholics. But that's because they're all passionate about what they're doing. And if you're passionate about something, it's not a problem. So we should invent another word that is not an ism, because that's what you were pointing at. As soon as this, like alcoholism and so on, then it's pathological, it's bad, you can't do without it. So probably workaholism indeed is bad, but then we could add to a good mentor somebody who is a very passionate worker. At least I would like to add that. Now, I thought, Jason, aren't you forgetting something? Anybody shares my idea that he's forgetting something?
What about mentee?
Yeah, what about the mentee? What do you think the mentee should provide? Because he's only talking about the mentor. And you saw the laws of Herman were about what he could give, what he could offer, and what he said about the mentee was actually some kind of advice, and in a humorous way. But Jason is only demanding. Well, a good point. What do you think we can expect from the mentee? If you could add to Jason's laws, what would you add?
Loyalty.
Loyalty? Oh, I thought I write it down, but loyalty, passion,
Motivation.
sorry, motivation, interest, initiative,
Self-knowledge.
self-knowledge,
Communication.
communication as well, yeah.
Teamwork.
Teamwork. Hey. Other things?
Trust.
Trust. Yeah. Actually, trust is the basic thing. Mentor and mentee need to trust each other. If there is no trust, we don't talk about a mentor-mentee relationship. Other things that you would want to add, that you say, this is what I'm working on, or this is what I give.
Courage.
Courage. Ooh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think, for example, in your case, when you were talking about not using the literature, sometimes you have to stand up to your mentor or really like take a stand against something.
I will admit it didn't take me any courage because my mentor was so open to it. So I would.
Right, but sometimes.
But sometimes you, yeah, I know. Sometimes you really need to have that courage. Yes. Okay.